Alright guys, it's Chatterbox Reviews, coming to you guys with another tier list video. This one's going to be ranking every major character death in The Walking Dead. Alright, so this is the third tier list video that I've done for The Walking Dead. I think it's the third one. I'll try to link the other ones that I've done so far. I think we've done the seasons, right? All the seasons of the universe, or the franchise, I suppose. So, you know, including Daryl Dixon and Dead City and all that stuff now. And then also I did the villains. So some of the major villains of the show. I did a tier list of that one. So this one should be fun. It's character deaths. I'm thinking soon of just doing all the characters. So it'll be kind of a follow-up to the villains one. So if you're interested in that, please let me know. I do know it'd be a bit of a big project for me, you know, to go into that many characters of the show, or maybe I'll just stick to the major characters. But anyways, I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on, of course, just The Walking Dead in general. I thought it was a pretty good time. We're, you know, about less than a month away now from Dead City, season 2, right? Season 2 of Dead City, and so kind of fun to think about the show and think about the universe again, you know, going back in to the show. And so yeah, I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on these character deaths. If you agree or disagree with me, anything like that, I'd love to hear from you guys. And if you enjoy this one, please like and consider subscribing to the channel as well. Would really appreciate that. But without any further ado then, let's get into the tier list. Alright, so here we are on the tier list. We have every TWD character death. Obviously, it's not every single one, but it's just the major ones. And so I think I did find this this template here, so I did not make this. But I did have to add a few because it wasn't updated. And of course, this is including all 11 seasons of the show. And so I did add some. So I think it says there's 37, but I think there's actually about 42. We have a duplicate here, so, you know, this one we'll just leave, you know, I'm not going to rank it twice with Simon there. But anyway, so I think 42 without the duplicate there that we have. And then in terms of the tiers, we have S, A, B, C, D, and then I added an F tier as well to this, just because I do have some very strong feelings, and I'm sure, you know, if you're a fan of the show, obviously, you'll know what I'm talking about when we get there. But anyways, I do have some strong feelings about, you know, 2 or 3 of these deaths in here, and so I think it was, you know, actually worthwhile to have an F tier just to, you know, really hammer home the point of how I felt. So, yeah, hopefully 6 tiers is not too many, but we'll see once we get into things here. So, anyways, without any further ado then, let's get to the first one. And also, right, they are in order, or at least to the best of my abilities. I had to reorder all of these here, so I think they're all in order of, you know, in chronological order of when they happened in the seasons of the show. So that's what it is. All right. So Sophia, the first major character death, and I mean, literally, like, it's the first on our video here, our tier list, but it's the first of the show, really. Like, there are some deaths before this. Maybe you would say Jim in season 1, Dr. Jenner, and I can't remember that other the other character now that dies with Jenner. But anyways, there's some in there that I think you maybe could have included in this list. But Sophia in pretty much Dead Already season 2, I think a lot of people would agree it's like the first major character death, and it is a big one, right? You know, a lot of kind of the build-up of the whole first half of season 2 is looking for her, and just kind of this thing of like, yeah, she's probably dead after this amount of time of them not finding her, but they always kind of give you the hope, right, along the way, and you thought maybe she, you know, maybe she made it, like, there's no reason, right, why they would keep bringing it up and keep focusing on it this much if she was just dead at the very end of it. And it is that is kind of the thing we get, but the way that they play it out was just really, really well done. So, I don't know, I think maybe you got to go S here, right? I think you maybe do, like, it's the first major death of the show. It's also, like, the death of a child, too, so it kind of sets the bar for what the show, you know, does later on with some other younger characters just under her here. So, yeah, I think I'm going to go S with this one. I think it's just so influential, you know, for the show, and just at the time, you know, seeing Sophia walking out of that barn, it's just such an iconic moment, you know, for the show and for Carol as well, right? So yeah, just the way that happened was great. I guess you could maybe argue that, like, yeah, I guess her death we didn't technically see on screen, so maybe you could go there, and, you know, maybe that might move it down to A, you know, towards the end of the video, but we'll see. For now, I think we'll leave it in that S tier. All right, so then Dale in what is it, Judge, Jury, Executioner, right? In season 2, just a couple episodes right after Sophia dies there. So yeah, this one was a tough one, and obviously there are some behind the scenes stuff, right? Jeffrey DeMunn, very good friends with Frank Darabont, and so when Darabont kind of, all the drama with that, and he got kind of kicked off the show or fired, if you will, Jeffrey DeMunn was very, not happy with that, obviously, and I guess he stayed on the show for a lot, longer than you would think, right? I think he did like 11 episodes then in season 2, but then I think it was just kind of a thing where he told them, okay, I kind of done with the show, I don't really want to be around this anymore if Darabont is gone, and so anyway, so that's pretty much the reason why they killed him off, which was really unfortunate, because, I mean, even to the time that he had, a very short time in the show, Dale is one of my favorite characters, just a really likable character, and Jeffrey DeMunn, I think, is one of the better actors that we ever saw in the show. So and then Herschel comes in and kind of fills that void of, his storyline from the comics that we kind of wouldn't have got otherwise because he was killed early. So, and then in terms of his actual death in the episode, it's kind of cool, right? Because of the way that it's Carl's, the walker that he was toying with and that he didn't kill, ends up coming back and being the one to kill Dale, right? And so it adds a lot of development actually for Carl in those earlier seasons. And it's, it's just really tough to see what happens to Dale, and then Daryl has to put him out of his misery. So yeah, I'm thinking like anywhere, probably in B tier, I would think, for Dale. I think it's a good death for sure. And I do really like Dale. It was one of the more emotional deaths for sure of like the first half of the show. It definitely would be up there for me. So I'm going to put that in B tier, I think, for now, with Dale's death there. Very impactful for Carl for sure. And just the whole group too, right? Like I think it really does turn Rick as well. So I think we're going to put it maybe in the top of B. We might, have to move it up or anything like that. All right. Well, Shane, that's an easy S tier. Easy S tier, his death. Just so impactful, right? So impactful for, Rick, just the group, like just everything going up to that point in the show. It's just so impactful for the turn that happens, basically turning Rick into, or turning it into a Rick-tatorship, right? And him, turning into the guy who basically Shane, wanted him to be, in many ways. And so then going into season 3, we see Rick become that, and the group kind of adapt to be like Shane and be ready for the world that they're facing, especially after, beside the dying fire in the finale there. And when, the farm is destroyed and they have to leave, and then they find that prison. So, just such an impactful, death for the show, for Rick, everything. And then if you want to talk about, like, the actual, scene, it's amazing. I mean, one of the best scenes, I would say, in the whole show's history, and that happened in season 2. In Better Angels there. Just an amazing episode, leading up to it, all this tension building between Shane and Rick, and then that kind of final face-off in the field. It's iconic, right? It's so amazing, and then, Shane not able to shoot Rick. Rick tells him, shoot me, let it happen. He's not able to, but Rick is, and it's the situation where, we know only one of them can come out of this alive. Like, it's just not going to work going forward to have both of these guys alive and kind of fighting for the leadership of the group, fighting for Lori, fighting for Carl, right? Like, one of them had to go. And I just loved, Rick saying, this is you, not me, right? And going over this. And then, he turns into a walker and Carl has to shoot him. So just an amazing sequence. Easy S tier for me. And that's above Sophia too, if we're ranking within the tiers for sure. All right, so the next is T-Dog. So now we're into season 3 already, right? And when I was thinking back to this list, like, that's crazy. There's only been 3 major deaths up to the point of season 3, episode 4 of that season. So anyway, so Killer Within, we get 2 big deaths this season, or this episode, but T-Dog, the first one. Yeah, I thought this was a good, death. I thought it was kind of okay. I think probably C tier, really, because he does do it, to save Carol's life. right? He sacrifices himself to save Carol, right? So he kind of runs down the hallway, into the rest of the walkers to kind of give Carol some time, I guess, to get away. I think it's been a long time since I've seen the exact scene, but that's, I think, what I remember happening. And it was just really fitting for T-Dog, to do something like that, to sacrifice himself. And if I remember correctly, I think he was like already kind of, thinking that kind of life was meaningless and losing that purpose, right? And so for his ending to be, to have a purpose to sacrifice himself for Carol, I thought was fitting. But yeah, we've seen this death again and again, in the show for this type of thing, where he just goes into a swarm and is just, basically taken out by this swarm of these walkers. So yeah, I think we'll go to C tier for that one. I don't know, maybe D, I don't know. I mean, I guess I would have liked to see more of T-Dog, but I also felt like his story was kind of complete at that point. So, I don't know. I think we'll go C tier for now for T-Dog there. All right, so Laurie's death in Killer Within, Season 3, Episode 4, the same episode as T-Dog. Pretty crazy to think about that both of these characters died in the same episode, for sure, right? But anyway, so this one, yeah, I mean, It's a good death, right? It's a good death, in the way that we knew up to this point, she's pregnant in this world. Like, how is this going to work, right? Like, how is she going to have this baby and live, especially being in the prison, right? And then, of course, we're just thrown into this whole situation in Killer Within, where, all chaos breaks loose, right? And she's in this situation where, like, she does not have access to the medications, to Herschel, right? And so it's Maggie that has to do this procedure, and the only way to save Judith is, basically killing herself. So we get another sacrifice death, really, in Laurie sacrificing, and just such an emotional, probably one of the more emotional deaths, if not the most, in the show, right? Carl being there, comforting her, and then, of course, the moment where Rick finds out afterwards, with his hands on his knees, and he's crying, and yeah, just a really impactful death. I do kind of have reservations about it. Like, I would have liked to see her, be around maybe a little longer in the show. It did feel like, it was a little convenient, right, for that chaos to break loose, and then it's also the time where she gets pregnant, and then, she's trapped, and she's not able to survive it. So, yeah, and I think, did this have to do with maybe Sarah Wayne Kelly's maybe also wanting to leave the show at this point, maybe being done with it? I'm not exactly sure the behind the scenes there, but yeah, so I don't know if I can go really in A. I think it was really well done, but I think I'm going to go in B tier for this one. And when I go over Dale, yeah, I think I would go over Dale for sure. I mean, the impact of it is massive on Rick. We got an episode like Hounded, right, where we kind of go into his psyche a lot more in the rest of the season. So, yeah, I think it's impactful. But I'm only going to put it in B because I do have reservations. I think it was a little convenient, perhaps, and I think she maybe could have been around a little longer. But anyways, okay, so then next is Merle. So this was a really a good one, right, in this sorrowful life. Just really interesting to kind of see this whole arc, right, of Merle play out, where we start in, what is it, episode 2, where he first comes in, where he's chained to the rooftop, and to see his whole arc in season 3, where he comes in being, the governor's right-hand man, and to, then turning on him, right, being a traitor, and then in this sorrowful life, going back and trying to kill the governor, and obviously failing at that, and then we get the, moment that Daryl, sees Merle as a walker. Again, one of the more emotional moments for sure. Norman Reedus, amazing acting in that scene as well. Yeah, just so emotional seeing his brother dead, and it was a really great death, right? Because it's, it's Merle, again, this whole arc that's played out really, really effectively, and for that to be the end of him, right? His demise is him, going back, trying to help the group, trying to go kill the governor, and, failing in the process. So, yeah, really good death for Merle. I think I would probably put it in A tier. To be honest, I think that, yeah, like I said, just a really good playing out of that arc, a really effective way of doing it. And then, like this picture states, it was kind of a good, and that's, I guess, a theme with a lot of these deaths is like, technically the death is something, but then there's also usually something with them as a walker afterwards, which is Sophia, which is Shane. Like, there's just a lot of those, and I think that moment is great too. Where we see Daryl obviously finding him. So I think I'm gonna put that in A tier for now. Again, may move it as we go on. All right. So next then is Andrea. So this is an interesting one. So yeah, it's tough because, I think at the time, and then the first time I watched the show, I think I started watching live in about season 5 or season 4, something like that of the show. And so this was something that I watched, I think, on Netflix, before I caught up to it. And so the first time I watched Andrea's death, I didn't think a whole lot of it. Like, it was an emotional scene, and I was really, torn up by it. But I didn't really think of, that was, why did they kill her off this soon? Or, maybe they could have kept her for longer. That I didn't think that, but now in hindsight, especially, in the comics now, and basically Michonne kind of taking over her role from the comics for a lot of the rest of the series, it does seem like they really should have kept her around longer, for sure. I think Laurie Holden's a great actress as well, so it would have been nice to see what she could have brought to it. And just the way that it ends for her, I do really like the scene where, they hear the gunshot, right, in the background, and she's in that room after she's been bit by Milton, and so she kind of, basically is, and again, I guess we see this mirrored with Carl later on, which I'll talk about for sure. Now, thinking about that with the whole gunshot thing that they hear in the distance. Anyways, I liked that, but the whole scene itself kind of plays out a little odd, right? You do think that she could probably have escaped that situation and made it so that Milton did not get to bite her. It did seem a little convenient. And yeah, just an odd choice, really, to kill her off that soon in the series and divert that much from the comics. It was kind of a weird decision now in hindsight. So yeah, not a huge fan of this one. So I don't know. Would I go in D tier with it though? I don't know. I mean, that's tough. I would see the C tier as kind of like a mid tier. I think that's T-Dog's death would definitely fit that. So I'm gonna put this in D because I think this is below mid to me. I think I'm actually a little. I found this to be a little maybe frustrating now in hindsight, especially when I rewatched the show as well, those first 3 seasons, to see her, be such a major character in the show and have such a good arc up to this point, and her relationship with the governor and all that. To see it end like this was pretty disappointing. So I'm going to put that in the D tier there for now with Andrea. All right, so next is Herschel. I mean, this is just an amazing scene, amazing death. It's between S and A to me for Herschel, right? We get the line from the governor, liar, and then he just goes and essentially beheads Herschel. Doesn't do it on the first try, of course, and kills him there. And I mean, just a reaction from Beth and Maggie, back at the prison at the fence there. It's just, I mean, yeah, it's amazing. I'm not sure that I can put it in S just because, I feel like that I don't know, but these were maybe, I mean, the Sophia death is maybe on par with something like Herschel. Maybe not as impactful, though, for the show. So, I'm going to put it in A. I think I'm going to put it at the top of A tier, above Merle there. But yeah, I mean, it's such an iconic moment in the show, right? The governor is, as the episode is called, Too Far Gone, really goes too far gone in this, and it's the final thing that he does where Rick is saying that he can come over, they can start anew together and move forward, and then he does this, and it's just completely, the battle begins, basically. It's the last straw. So, a crazy death. Of course, the visual of it is great, and really emotional to see Herschel go. Again, one of my favorite characters up to that point, really great. So yeah, a tough death, but I will say, in the couple episodes, where him and Michonne get, kidnapped by the governor and taken hostage, and then this happens. I was expecting maybe a little more from that, and maybe we could have seen a little more of Herschel leading up to that. I know he tries to, talk the governor out of it, and he's trying to be that kind of moral compass, and it's really the governor rejecting that, and so that death is really showcasing that. So, anyways, I'm going to put it at the top of A. Maybe I move it up as we go forward here. All right, so the governor then. So this was an interesting one. the actual death itself is good. I would have liked to see Rick do it, though. I think that would have been kind of the icing on top of for this death of the governor. It is great to see Michonne, and even just the visual of that, right, with her katana just going straight through his body right when he's about to kill Rick, right? Like, Rick is, I would say, seconds away from death, right, with him choking him out. And so for Michonne to come in and then kill him, just a really great moment. And then I think what, like, the actual final blow is what Tara's sister, Lily, is that? And then she comes and shoots him. If I'm remembering correctly, that seems to be what actually, like, formally kills him, even though the stab wound is obviously, you know, is going to anyways eventually. But yeah, I would have liked to see Rick, I think, do it to get the final, you know, blow to him and actually kill him. So I think I'm going to put it in A tier for that. Obviously, really satisfying to see him die at this point in Too Far Gone. Just a really great sequence. And so, you know, a really great death as well. So would I put it over these ones? I don't think so. You know, I would put it definitely over Merle for sure. I think Herschel's death would top it. So I think I'm going to put it in A there. The only thing, you know, stopping it from S is just I would have liked to see it, you know, from Rick's perspective and him deal the final blow. But anyways, still really great. Still really great death there, and very satisfying to see the governor finally go after the 2 seasons. So, okay, so next then we have 2 of these. So Mika and then Lizzie. You know, they're kind of obviously in the same episode, The Grove, but 2 kind of different deaths there. So I don't know. I mean, it's tough to rank these on different tiers, right? Because in a way, I think Lizzie's would be above it, right? So maybe I put Mika in 1 tier below, and then Lizzie in I'm thinking probably S for Lizzie's death. Just because, again, like, kind of like I said with Sophia, like, it showed us something like completely, you know, it went all the way, really, right? Like, in terms of, you know, you don't kill kids, right? Like, it's kind of a rule of TV, of shows, you know, like The Walking Dead kind of broke that with seeing Sophia die. In this case, you know, we see, you know, this young girl kill her own sister, right? And then Carol having to do that, and the scene that plays out is just amazing, right? You know, her look at the flowers and her shooting her from behind because she knows she has to, right? Like, Lizzie poses a serious threat to her and Tyrese at this point, having ever just killed her sister, and it's this point of, like, this has to be done. Like, this just has to be done for what she has done and what she could do, what she's capable of. And yeah, just a really crazy moment, and the way that they did it, I thought was really great. So, would I put it? Oh, I don't think I'd put it over Sophia. I think that's just a more impactful moment. So we'll put it in S tier, and then Mika. Yeah, I don't think I could put it in S, right? Like, it's not on that level. We also don't see it happen, right, on screen. Thankfully, I guess, you know, you don't really want to see that. But, yeah, it's kind of the aftermath and Lizzie kind of holding the bloody knife and everything. Just horrifying, right? A horrifying moment of the show. So, yeah, I mean, is that, or maybe I put it in the B tier then. You know, that's tough. Yeah, I think I put it in the B tier. I think I'll put it right here, maybe. You know, Dale's death maybe is a little more impactful. So yeah, we'll put her in the B tier there for now. But still a very, you know, important death that obviously leads to an S tier death, in my opinion. So we'll put it up there. All right, next then is Bob. This one was a good one, right? Like, it just really fit his character perfectly to me. You know, he also has the moment then of the tainted meat, right, where he's able to kind of get back at, you know, Gareth, right? It's Gareth and his guys, you know, that are eating him, right? Like, the cannibals literally eating him, and he's, you know, already bit, right? And so he's able to have this kind of moment of this, you know, that he's tainted meat and kind of get back at them even though he's already dying. And then a really great moment, you know, when he's in the bed there at the church, and I think it's Sasha, right, you know, who's comforting him, and it just really felt like he went out his own way, right? He went out with his humor, and he tried to kind of instill that in Sasha, I think, going forward. So yeah, I think it was just a really good death for him, the way it played out. And I think he gets bitten on one of those supply runs. I think it's in the basement of that one place that they're at near the church, trying to get stuff, and he gets bit there. So yeah, just a really good character for how long he was in the show, and just a really fitting death, for how he went out. So to me, I'd say probably B tier here. The way it goes. Again, maybe over Mika then, maybe over Dale, just because of the way that it's kind of built up, to get to the point, like I said, with the Tate and Mead and that kind of thing, and then him dying on his own terms there. Yeah, I think we'll do that. I think we'll go over Dale, although Dale's death, maybe a little more impactful. Okay, so we'll put it there in B tier for Bob. All right, so next then is Beth's death in season 5, episode 8, Coda, right? So this is an interesting one for sure. I don't know. On rewatch of the show, a couple of rewatches I've done, but I think, the last rewatch I did, I really didn't hate the hospital stuff as much, as I remembered. I think I actually kind of liked this plot line a little more than others. And so I don't know, I kind of felt okay with this death. It's very kind of sudden, right? You have you have this buildup of Beth, rebelling against the officers and against Dawn and all this stuff. And it really seems though, in that moment that, she's going to go home. Finally, she's been rescued and she's able to kind of escape this and go home, and this plot is over. And then she makes that kind of impulsive decision, right, with the scissors to stab Dawn. And that's just this instantaneous death, right, with Dawn just kind of, it's just a kind of, instinctual reaction, pull the trigger on her gun, and then it kills Beth, and as you see in the picture. Really great way that they filmed this sequence, just an iconic shot in the show's history for sure, with Beth dying, and then who's a Daryl, then just point blank just shoots Dawn right away. And I thought Dawn could be on this list too, but anyways, we'll just stick with the Beth one from this. So yeah, a little disappointing though overall. I think Beth could have been a better character going forward. I'm not sure that it had to happen in this scene. And it also was kind of does it really have that much impact going forward? Obviously, it impacts Maggie a lot, the scene where Daryl has her in his arms, walking out, really emotional moment. But, what is the impact there really, right? They're able to rescue her. Is it kind of saying, even then, they kind of trust them, they're doing this exchange 1-for-1, and then they get betrayed again, and she kills her? But not even really, right? Because it's Beth who initiates it and does this. So, yeah, I don't know. It was a little disappointing, to be honest. I think it would probably be, in the C or D tier, along with kind of Andrea level. I don't know. This is tough. Would I put it below Andrea, honestly? I don't know. I mean, that's a tough one. I guess so. I mean, I think Andrew's a little more frustrating. I think Beth's kind of arc to that point made a little more sense maybe. But anyways, we'll put it in the D tier. I don't think it deserves F tier. I think the other ones I'm going to talk about are at a little bit of a different level to me. But yeah, so I think we'll put it there in D tier. All right. So then Tyrese, his death in literally just the next episode, what happened and what's going on. To me, it's probably a top 15 episode of the show. Absolutely love this episode. Just the whole way that they did it, and even just the fact that they have another major character death, and I mean major, Tyrese was a top 10 character at this point for sure in the show. And so the very next episode, once we come back from that mid-season break, they're killing another one in the very next episode. So that truly was kind of insane to see, and just the whole episode, the way they did it, when they're all at the cross having kind of the burial, right? And we're trying to figure out, oh shit, somebody died. Who was it? And then, as the episode goes on, he gets bit, the hallucinations with the governor and Mika and Lizzie. It's okay now. It's better now, right? And all this stuff. So yeah, just a really great sequence, the whole way it plays out. Is there a kind of a little bit here where, did he need to die, right? Did this need to happen? Could we have seen Tyrese last a little longer in the show? Yeah, right? The way he gets bit is I think he's he's going back, right, to help Noah, right, find his brothers, and then it's his brother, one of the brothers who ends up biting him, right, and so, yeah, is that, stay true to Tyrese's character? Yeah, that he wants to help people, and that, this is the way that he ends up meeting his demise, is trying to help people and trying to be, the kind of the good person, in this case. So yeah, and the way it was executed, I thought was really, really great. But yeah, like, could he have been, could he have been around longer? Yeah, I think he could have, and it wasn't really super necessary for him to die here. And I can't remember if there was something with Chadwell Coleman, the actor here, that made, that kind of spurred on his death this early in the show. I'm not sure. I think maybe. But anyway, so I think kind of bottom of C tier. Again, I think the execution was really great. But yeah, did it need to happen at this point of the show? Was it maybe a little weak, for his character and how strong he was for this to happen to him? Yeah, maybe, right? Maybe. So, I don't know, maybe C tier, or maybe, maybe B tier, maybe bottom of B, perhaps, with the execution being so good. Yeah, okay. We'll put the bottom of B tier here. It's already so, again, one of my favorite characters of the show. Really, a really great character. But yeah, I think we'll put it in B, or maybe C. That's tough. I think that's kind of the mid tier. I think it was good. So, okay. So we'll put it at the bottom of B tier just for now. And again, we'll see. We'll see if I want to move that or not. All right, so this one, Noah's death, this is so memorable to me. I think this is arguably one of the most memorable deaths. Obviously, we're going to get to the lineup, right? Those are probably, you could say, memorable deaths. But this one, to me, like, when I first watched this, I was, like, blown away. Like, just jaw on the floor, watching the scene play out. I think it's one of the most gruesome deaths that I've definitely in this show, but, like, maybe ever of any TV show I've seen. Like, it's just insane, and it also, to this day, has scared me to go in these revolving doors. Like, almost every time I go through one now, I think of this scene from The Walking Dead of Noah being trapped in there with all the walkers and just getting torn apart, and he's helpless. Nothing to do. He can't get out of it. Just horrifying, and the way that they film it too is just so great. And just his story, felt really great, up to this point. Again, Tyrese and then go back to help find his brothers, and sacrifice themselves for him. And then later on, he ends up sacrificing himself for Glenn at the door. This also does a lot, to develop Glenn as a character, for him feeling the guilt of leaving him, perhaps even causing his death. Right, in this, of leaving him in the door and him getting trapped in there, and Glenn watches it, right? Like, he has to watch this happen to Noah as we're watching it. So to me, yeah, maybe this is a hot take, but like I gotta put this really high, because I think both in the execution of it is just insane, and then also the impact that it has, really great for Noah's arc as a character. Yeah, I really like this one. I really like this death. So, yeah, I don't know. Like, A tier, is that too high maybe? Honestly, I don't think so. I really don't think so. I think, probably below Merle, though, probably. So, yeah, let's put it in there, at the bottom of A tier for now. But, yeah, really memorable death for me, for sure. All right, so the next is Nicholas. Of course, in the episode, Thank You. And, I guess this doesn't really play into the ranking of this death scene, but, of course, this is the dumpster death, right? The Glenn dumpster death, which, in hindsight, is just like one of the most insane things that happened in the show's history. The fact that, anyways, I don't, we don't need to get into it, but the fact that he slid under that dumpster and lived there for like a whole, 12 hours or something until the zombies, like, just insane, right? And just the way that they, filmed it. Like, the night I watched that episode live, I still remember I was like I just had chills and was just in shock that they had just killed Glenn in the show, right? And of course, a season later, he does die for real. But at this point, like, I completely bought in that he was dead after this episode. So anyways, with that kind of aside, yeah, I guess that does play a part in the ranking, because that is kind of like an extension of Nicholas's death. But yeah, it was it was interesting, right? It's an interesting death, right? He loses all hope basically, and they're trapped now against the dumpster, and so he kills himself, puts the gun to his head, says thank you, and then kills himself. And then, of course, that causes Glenn to fall down. So, yeah, I mean, again, it's one of the most memorable moments of the show, for sure. But does that really have to do, specifically with his death? I don't know. It's more the scene that plays out afterwards. So, I don't know. I think I would probably put it in C tier then, maybe, for Nicholas. I mean, he wasn't that big of a character either, to this point. He had basically, a role in the second half of season 5 and coming into season 6. But, so I think I would just put it in C. That's, again, kind of the mid tier here. I think it was kind of just mid, it's a memorable moment, but not necessarily for the right reasons either, right? I don't think the dumpster death is considered one of the best moments of the show for sure. So I think we'll put it at the bottom of the C there for now. Again, not necessarily really including the dumpster stuff in the ranking there. Okay, so then Deanna at the end of season 6, the first half there, I think it was episode 7 or something like that, where she dies. Right, so the walkers are coming in Alexandria, and so I believe that she's already been bitten at this point. She gets bitten, and then she's in the bedroom, right, and then they, open the door, and in this moment, she screams when all the walkers are coming in, and then, I think she has the gun, she starts shooting some of them, and then it is a weird moment, though, too, when I think they see her later on, right? They see her as a walker later on. That kind of confirms that she died. Obviously in that moment, but yeah, it is weird, is she does, I guess, kill all those walkers in the scene and then somehow manages to escape, or does she stay there and then turn and then she escapes Alexandria, escapes the house at least, and then shows up later? It doesn't really make a lot of sense, that whole thing. But yeah, I mean, it's a tough death at the time. It also is kind of important, right? Because it really puts Rick and that group in charge now, formally, right? Instead of her still being around and still being the leader of Alexandria at that point. So yeah, I don't know. Again, I think it's kind of in this mid-tier, to be honest. And the way that, some of it doesn't completely make sense with the way that she, is a walker later on. I think just here. I think just at, bottom of C tier for me. Probably put it below Nicholas's there. Yeah, I think that's fine. Just kind of a regular kind of demise for one of the characters here. So next then is the Andersons. So we're including, I guess, 3 of them here. So Sam, Ron, right, and Jesse, right? So the 3 of them there. I mean, this is a big moment for sure. What is it? Episode 8, right? Is that start to finish? Episode 8 of season 6, I'm forgetting now. But anyways, leading into No Way Out, of course. The episode 9, right, where, Ron actually shoots Carl, right? So I guess this is really like a 2-episode thing, right? Because season 6 episode 8 ends, right when Sam is basically about to get eaten by the walkers because he can't shut up, he can't stay quiet, and then of course Jesse's holding on to him, and then then we go into episode 9, and then we kind of see all of them die. So yeah, I mean it's a big moment in the show for sure. It's insane to see Sam get killed. Again, another child, right, that gets killed in the show. And then Jesse kind of holding on to him. The moment, too, where Rick has to cut Jesse's arm off because he can't let go of her, right? So that moment is tough. And it's tough, right, for Rick, who's really had feelings now for Jesse. And then, of course, the scene, right, where Ron, shoots Carl, and then Michonne, stabs him from behind. Very similar to the way that the governor dies, of course, in season 4, visually speaking. So yeah, I mean, I'm not sure where to put it. It's a big moment, but it doesn't mean that much. Yeah, I guess it affects Rick quite a bit. And it affects Carl, obviously, the shooting out of his eye, and kind of leads to the events of the rest of the episode of No Way Out. But I'm not sure. Maybe in B tier somewhere here. Maybe below Tyrese or maybe a little bit above it. I don't know. I think it's above C for sure. Yeah, okay. We'll put it at the bottom of B there for now. with the Andersons there. We get 3 deaths for 1, I guess, in this case, with this ranking here. So, all right, so next then is Denise. And this is what, towards the end of season 6, right? It's a funny episode because we got a lot of these episodes in The Walking Dead where, we would be following this character and, they had some screen time for sure throughout the show. They had side plots and this kind of thing going on. And then you got to the one episode and suddenly they had so much screen time and they were like the main focus of the episode, right? And that's exactly what happened with Denise. And then, of course, they killed them off towards the end of the episode, right? It was kind of like a clear foreshadowing, right, of what was going to happen to this character. If we hadn't seen a lot of them so far, now we're seeing a lot of them. They're probably going to die. So it was kind of lazy at times that they did this for sure. But this is exactly what happens in this episode. We see a lot of Denise, and I can't remember exactly what they're doing, but they're going for supplies or something like that, and she wants to go on the run with them, and they try to tell her no. Of course, she goes, and then we get this really great scene, though, where Dwight shoots the arrow right through her eye, as we see in this picture here. So that, to me, is probably one of the more iconic deaths for sure, just visually speaking. The arrow through the eye is crazy, and then she also, gets out some words before she collapses. And then this is kind of the introduction of Dwight again, right? His return to the show after, of course, Daryl lets him go earlier in season 6, I believe, or is it 5, maybe? And then, we see Denise then get killed by Dwight, and he returns. And I think, is this also the scene where Eugene, bites Dwight's dick as well? That's a good sequence, too. But anyways, just Denise's death here. Yeah, I thought it was good. I thought it was good. I would see probably in that C tier to me. It's in the same range as a lot of these characters. It is an iconic kind of, visual, like I said, with the arrow through the head. And having Dwight come back. So I would probably put it, I'd probably put it above T-Dog, I think. Again, just the visual, aspect of it, and her being a pretty big character up to this point in the show. I think I'd put it there. You know what? Maybe I might put T-Dog over it, but T-Dog, again, he just gets, eaten by some walkers. I think this one was a little more unique in that way. So, yeah, we'll leave that at the top of C tier there. All right, so then next is Abraham. Yeah, I think this has got to be, I think it's got to be S. If not, you know what? Maybe I put it at the top of A, maybe, and then obviously the Glenwood I would put S. Yeah, and I'll do these at the same time, I guess. So the Glenn S, where would that be? I think Shane is still more impactful. Yeah, the Glenn is just probably the most memorable death. Yeah, so I'd say probably second in the S tier there for sure. Yeah, in terms of his death, I think that's an appropriate spot for that. It's over Sophia because he's such a big character, right, throughout the entire series, more than Sophia. But yeah, so Abraham, I don't think I'm gonna put in that S range, but it is super memorable for sure. Yeah, you know what? Yeah, I got to put in the S tier. I got to move that up. So is it above these two? The Sophia one is really impactful. And this one honestly is really, you know what? Okay, so I'll put it at the bottom of S tier then maybe. But yeah, obviously just an insane sequence of killing Abraham, right? And I think, and I remember that time, by the way. That was one of my favorite times of being a Walking Dead fan, was that time in between season 6 and 7. Unbelievable, the amount of anticipation that people had, the videos and all the theories on it, which, in hindsight, it was a cheap way, to get views and to get attention to the series by ending it with that cliffhanger at the end of season 6. But that aside, it worked, right? It obviously worked, the anticipation. And I remember the night I watched that premiere episode, I literally had chills the entire runtime of the episode. And yeah, Abraham was definitely the more predictable one, right? He says, taking it like a champ, right? That could, it could only mean a few, characters in the lineup. And Abraham was definitely one of them. So that wasn't a huge shock, right, to see his death. A really emotional one. Again, Abraham, one of my favorite characters the whole series. So really, a really emotional moment. And obviously the way it happens with him bashing his head in, with the introduction of Negan. Really crazy. But it's Glenn's death. Not only because Glenn has been around since, the pilot, right? We hear his voice in the pilot episode of the show. It's that, but it's also just the way that it happens in the episode, right? It's the shock of this happening right after Daryl attacks Negan. He says, so, back to it, and then just turns and just takes out Glenn. Like, just insane. And then, of course, the Maggie, I'll find you moment with his eye popping out of his, it's just visually the most memorable death of the show. It just means so much to the group, so demoralizing, and really is what leads them on the path of what happens in season 7, where they're so beaten down, especially Rick. So yeah, I mean, an easy S tier death. And, obviously Abraham and Glenn, but especially Glenn's death, one of the most memorable deaths in TV history, right? I mean, even if you haven't seen every TV show or, even if you haven't seen all of Walking Dead, like, it's pretty easy to say that just in terms of the popularity, the buzz at the time, everyone talking about this. I feel like even people who haven't seen the show know about this death. It's kind of on the same level to me as the Red Wedding in Game of Thrones, right? Even if you haven't seen Game of Thrones, you've at least heard of the Red Wedding and you know that that's a crazy thing. This, I think, is on that same level. So anyways, really great stuff. Enough said about that for sure. All right, so then Spencer's death in season 7, episode 8, I believe, Heart Still Beating. I think that's right. So where he basically tries to take over Alexandria from Rick, and then we think that Negan's kind of playing along, right, as it's going on, and, then we get the scene, you don't have the guts, right? And I've never been wrong in my entire life. It's some really great moments, and just ripped straight from the page of the comics as well, which is really awesome. And yeah, so just a really great way it plays out. Again, Spencer's not the biggest character. It was satisfying, to see him go for sure. So I'm thinking probably in this C tier here. I would say top of C tier. I think just the way it plays out with Negan gutting him with the massive knife, like just a really great way it played out. And again, Spencer's not a huge character, probably on the same level as something like Denise to this point in the show, especially in season 7, he kind of gets a bigger spotlight. So yeah, just a good death there for Spencer. All right, so then Sasha is next in the season 7 finale, and yeah, this death is kind of in the same vein as a Beth and Andrea to me. I'm not sure if it'll go on the same tier, but it's in the same range, right? Where it's kind of like, did she have to die there, right? Like, we could have definitely had her for more episodes of the show. Was it that meaningful? I guess so, right? Like, I guess so. She basically, kills herself, right? She basically commits suicide, kills herself with those pills that she gets. And then, of course, it gives this opportunity, for her to basically ambush Negan at the thing. It is a little convenient, though, right? Like, how does she know that exact thing was going to happen? They could have easily gone the other way, and her just, Negan just noticing her right away and stabbing her, and it would have been done, and her death would have meant nothing, right? But on the other end, it also did make sense for her character because that's kind of her headspace at the time, right? She kind of had lost hope, and her whole plan as well to go to the sanctuary. It was pretty much a suicide mission anyways. And so, it was very clear that she, was done, right? If you will. She basically wanted to die at that point in the show. So again, though, did that plotline make a lot of sense? They built her up into that to make this decision. And then, like I said, a very convenient way of doing things because it worked out exactly like the best possible way for her death to mean something and actually help the group. Whereas, again, it could have just as easily have meant nothing and did really nothing for them. So, and just, yeah, I mean, you could have wrote a way better thing, of Negan being distracted or something happening there in the same situation. So, yeah, I was a little disappointed with this one, to be honest. And I think it did also to do with Sneako Martin Green. I think she got Star Trek Discovery, the role in that show at the time. And so I think she kind of had to leave the show anyways. So yeah, you could kind of tell. I think you could kind of tell with that death. So I don't know, it's not the best, it's not the worst in terms of these ones. Yeah, or maybe just like, I don't know if I could put it in C tier though. I think it was kind of disappointing. So you know what? I'll probably go top of D then, because I think both of these are worse than Sasha's death. with Beth and Andrea, but it's all, yeah, kind of in the same boat here. Not to use an episode title of the show, but I think it's the same boat here where, Andrea, Beth, and Sasha kind of on the same level, but I don't think Sasha is as bad as those. So, obviously we're ranking, best to worst in these tiers, and so, yeah, I think it's like the best of these kind of disappointing deaths, I would say, in terms of those. So, yeah, we'll stick her in the D here for now. All right. So our first F tier death, I mean, this is so clear F tier. I mean, it's going to be the bottom of F tier probably by the time we get done. It's Carl's death in the show. Yeah, I mean, it's just the dumbest decision maybe ever, in TV history of killing off a character, especially in this situation where it wasn't a case like Sonequa Martin Green or some of these other ones I've talked about, right? Like Jeffrey DeMunn, who, asked off the show, so they had to kill him. Sonequa Martin Green had to leave the show, so she had to be killed. Who else on here? That's the only ones I'm seeing right now. But anyways, Chandler Riggs didn't have another show. Like, he did not have something to where AMC just had no choice and they had to kill him off or he had to leave the show. No, it was over like these contract disputes that he was turning 18, they would have had to pay him more, and they didn't want him being around as a kind of a younger actor of the show, and all this kind of just bullshit, to be honest, bullshit reasons behind the scenes of all this stuff. And so it leads them to kill him off. And they also kind of, Gimple justified it maybe, a little bit of the time. I remember, by saying, this is basically what makes Rick not kill Negan. It was the only way that they could justify keeping Negan alive. And if it got to that point in the show, like, just kill Negan. Like, why would you ever think to kill Carl to keep Negan alive? Like, again, I'm like the biggest Negan fan. I love Negan, and I'm really happy in hindsight that they kept him alive and we saw his arc and even what he's been doing in Dead City. Really great. But at the expense of Carl, like, that just, no. I can't hear that. No. And just the whole show, up to that point, 8 seasons of the show is, Rick handing it down. He's building this world for Carl, for his son to take over. And it's kind of the theme of the entire show. And then to have it happen like this in season 8, we're 8 seasons in, and to have him, the son, Carl, die. And what's the point of the show? Like, it just kind of lost the point of it, really. And then obviously Andrew Lincoln, I don't want to say this is the main reason, but it's certainly one of the reasons, I think, why he departed the show just the next season. And I think this really did kind of hurt Andrew Lincoln and just, his belief in the show and where it was going, because it just kind of sank the show. Again, like, the whole purpose of the show, the whole premise of the show is him building this better world for Carl, and we watch the whole time this kind of relationship between them and the whole arc that Carl goes on in the show, like, and then just to end like this, and the way that it happens too, like, it's just, and it's kind of like a phantom bite, right, where we actually don't even really see it in the episode, and if you go back and look at it, it's like, okay, like, is it even possible that the walker got to him in that scene? Like, yeah, just really, really disappointing. Just so dumb. Such a dumb decision to kill him. I will say, and I'm still going to keep it an F, but I will say the execution, though, was pretty good, right? Like, the episode Honor, season 8, episode 9, where he dies, I think is one of the better episodes of the show, actually. And the execution of it felt really great. I thought I really liked it, right? The whole sequence with Michonne and Rick and Carl at the church, and just the emotional, stuff behind that, and such, rich, performances from Denai Guerrero, Andrew Lincoln, and even Chandler Riggs. I thought there was literally like his best acting that he did in the whole show was in that episode of the show, literally his last one, unfortunately. But anyways, so yeah, I will give him credit. The execution was great. I actually did really like, let's say this, they did the best with what they had, right? So it's a dumb, stupid decision to kill him, but they did actually a pretty good job with it. So anyways, I'm going to keep it an F, though. The execution is just too overmatched by the stupidity of the decision. So anyways, no, that's going to stay an F. To me, probably the worst F in the show. All right, so the next is Simon, and this was at the end of season 8, kind of the wrapping up of kind of the Civil War plot, really, right, between the Saviors and Negan and Simon. I really liked this death. I really liked that dynamic between Simon and Negan. I thought it added a lot to season 8. Especially towards the end of it with All Out War. I thought it was just a really fascinating dynamic that they played on, between those two who seemed, at the beginning to be kind of joined at the hip, and then, Simon being his right-hand man, right? And then seeing where that went and just kind of, seeing the end of that, right? Okay, here's two guys who, are alphas, right, who need to be in charge, and Simon is just not letting that happen, right? To me, it's a very kind of similar dynamic to Shane and Rick in season 2, right? And so to see it end, right, with a fight, right? It's like a bare-knuckle fight between the two, and Negan's able to come out victorious, and I think he chokes him to death, right? Killing Simon, and then of course we get this image of Simon, out on the courtyard, right at the sanctuary where he's a walker now. So yeah, I thought it was a really good death there. I mean, I don't know, would it be in B tier? Simon was a pretty big character, for two and a bit seasons that he was in the show, and I do really like the way that it played out as well. I think he's a level above C. I don't think he really fits in this tier. I think he's above that. Maybe bottom of B tier then for Simon. There. Yeah, I think that's a fair spot for him. All right, so next then is Gregory, and this is an interesting one to me because maybe this is a hot take. I don't know. I felt like this death, and I talked about this as well in my villains tier list video that I did. I think I talked about Gregory, obviously, in that list. I think so, or maybe it was something else. But anyways, I talked about this in one of the videos, in that one, I think, where I just thought, I thought this death was a little far-fetched to me. Gregory's an asshole, right? He just takes the easy way, right? Every time, betrays his whole group and his whole, family basically, right, at the hilltop, and just goes to the Saviors, right, at the first chance he gets, for more power to feed his ego, right? And he's just the worst kind of a guy, basically, right? But he's not that evil. Would he have really posed a massive risk to the people at the hilltop at this time in season 9? Was he dangerous? Not really, right? In my opinion. So I just thought his death was a little too far. I don't know. Again, I was fine with it. I'm fine with him dying at that point of the show. But I just thought, it just kind of, to me, felt a little too much. That Maggie would just hang him like that. Obviously he's a traitor. I get that. But I just feel like other characters were more evil or more, dangerous than him. I think it just would have been more fitting for him in the show just to be kept alive, right, and be a prisoner for the rest of his days, or whatever, or maybe he, dies in some kind of a stupid way, right, where he's he escapes the prison or something, and then he gets bit by a walker, and then that's how he dies. It just seemed like that would have been more fitting. I guess they were trying to show also, how kind of far Maggie has gone, right, and how kind of, ruthless she was becoming at this point as the leader of the hilltop. And so this is kind of a display of strength, right, to kill Gregory like this and have it displayed, to have him hanged like this. But I don't know. I just felt like you could have done that in other ways. I thought this was just maybe a little too far for the type of character that Gregory was and the stuff he did. Obviously bad, right? He deserved to die, but I just think they could have done it in a better, kind of more clever way, perhaps. So, yeah, a little disappointed with this one. Maybe in C tier somewhere. Maybe at the bottom of C, just because I did have a kind of a problem with it a little bit. So, yeah, okay, we'll put it at the bottom of C now for Gregory. All right, so next then is Jesus' death. So I kind of feel two ways about this one. On one hand, yeah, the character was just underutilized, right? And I think it came out, that Tom Paine, I'm not sure if he actually formally asked to be killed off the show, to leave the show, or maybe it was just that he was frustrated and he was kind of happy to leave the show, but he was frustrated, and I think he has a really great point of, when he got the character of Jesus, especially the comics and his storyline in the comics, to see what he had become in the show. especially in season 6 when he first is brought in, he's a great character and they do show some of that. But very quickly on, they just kind of forgot about that and he just became, another character in the show. And so, especially to this point in season 9, what is this episode? Evolution, I think, season 9, episode 8, where he dies. Yeah, it just seemed like they just completely wasted Jesus as a character, especially compared to the comics. And I thought Tom Payne was a great actor. And so, yeah, it just seemed like they were kind of wasting that character. So that is on one hand, right? And then, of course, to have him die here, it's like, yeah, okay, but you could have done a lot more with that character. Having said that, I also, on the other hand, think this is like one of the best deaths in the show. To me, it's just one of the most memorable, if you talk about these other ones in S tier, right, being memorable deaths. This is one of the most memorable deaths of the show to me. It's the point where, and it's so effective because 9 seasons of the show, or 8.5, if you will, so far, we see characters get in fights with walkers, right? They're slow, they can, kind of come out of nowhere, right? But, a skilled fighter like Jesus and a lot of these other characters in the show now at this point, they're able to combat that, right? They push the walker back or whatever, stick the knife in their skull, and that's it, right? They just kill the walker. But it's so effective in this scene, just the way it's filmed, the fogginess of it, and that adding to kind of the feel of it. And he goes in for the kill on one of these walkers. You think it's just a regular walker. We've seen this literally like millions of times at this point in the show. And then the walker dodges his stabbing attempt, and then goes and stabs him in the back, and then we get this image, of course, where like he is just as shocked as us, really, at this point in the show, that he just got stabbed by this walker who just moved, right? And this, of course, is the introduction of the Whisperers. So, an amazing scene to me. I just think it's so memorable in the fact that it so diverts or so, kind of subverts our expectations in the best possible way. In that, again, we've seen this kind of thing millions of times. It's this guy, he's going to stab the walker in the head. He's going to be done with it. That's the end of the scene. But then it turns into something completely different. And then we also get the "you are where you do not belong," which is a really great line too. So I don't know. To me, I really, really like this death. Again, yeah, they could have used Jesus a lot more, and so the build up to this death did feel perhaps a little random. Like it felt like maybe it could have been a lot of other characters too. It wasn't necessarily impactful for him, particularly as a character. So I don't think I could put it in S tier, obviously, for that reason. But I don't know, like it's kind of in the same, way of Noah. Maybe it's a little less than Noah, I guess, because that did make more sense for his arc. But you know what? I think I'm going to have to do it. I think I'm going to have to put it in A. Would I put it above, or should I put it in B tier, with Dale, Lori? I don't know. I think this is a really, really memorable death in the show. So I'm going to put it in A tier. And I know, obviously there's stuff about this that is not the greatest, but such a memorable one. So I'm going to put it there. Again, maybe we might move it down to B later on. All right, so then we get the end of season 9. We get the heads on pikes, right? So we have the 3 deaths here. So we have Enid, Tara, and then what's his name? Henry, right? We get him. So yeah, I thought the way that they did all of these deaths, especially Tara and Enid, I thought was really effective, right? Where we get the episode of Alden's looking for her, right? We're looking around, and then we get the heads on pikes and we see Enid's there, and then we go back. It's kind of the flashbacks, right? And then they're looking for Tara. Where is she? Does anyone know where she is? And then we see her head on the pike. So, yeah, I thought it was really effective the way they played it out. Again, to this point, could they have picked better characters? I think so, right? Even, Ezekiel is the death in the comics, or one of the big ones. I actually would have liked to see, him in this situation in the show as well. I think it just would have been more impactful because, except for, especially, like, the other 6 names on the heads is like, okay, like, some of these characters I don't even recognize. Like, I didn't even know that they were, like, still in the show or alive, like, So, of course, Enid, Tara's a big death. I mean, she's been around since season 4 of the show, right? So, it's a big death, but I don't know, even to the point of like when this happened, did she have the, a really good arc going, and like did this really make sense for her character arc? Not really, right? Like, yeah, she was a big character for a long time, and it's shocking because of that. But does it really work? Not really. And I guess you can make the argument too, of course, that these are supposed to be random killings, right? She just randomly picked people. That's the whole point of it. So fair enough. But I don't know. I felt like this could have been a little better. I think Enid's is maybe even better than Tara's because of her relation with Alden and kind of what they were building up to, and then to see her, be killed as well. So I don't know. Of course, these are memorable deaths. Heads on Pikes, one of the most memorable moments of the show for sure. But yeah, I just know. I don't know. I just thought they were a little disappointing. In the way the characters they chose, and then also just the lack of kind of the development there of seeing it happen. So, but they are really memorable. So I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking like kind of B tier perhaps. Over Bob. I guess, probably over Bob. Mika, Tyrese even. That was maybe a little disappointing, though, as well. The Andersons. Yeah, see, this is tough. Somewhere in B tier here. Simon, I did like Simon's death. See, I don't know. Like, to me, I think Simon's death, makes more sense than some of these. The way it was executed. Yeah, I don't know. They are very memorable, though. So, okay, I might put Enid. Do I put her over Bob? I think Bob had a better thing. I think Mika is just more memorable. Tyrese had a better kind of sequence there. The Andersons, kind of a memorable one. So, I think I might put... no, you know what? I'm going to put Enid below Simon, I think. And then I'm going to put her over Tara. I think so. Yeah, okay. I think we're going to put them there in B tier. Again, very memorable deaths, but I think they could have been done better. I think they're better than Mid, though, just in the way that, Heads on Pikes is such a big moment in the show. So we'll put them both there in B tier. Now, the other one, yeah, this is going in F. Henry is going in F for sure, and I think Carl's going to end up being worse. But this, to me, maybe even, more stupid to me than Carl's death in a way, right? Because of course Carl, like I said, the main purpose of the show up to that point, and you're gonna kill him off, just insane. But then it's the thing that, okay, you kill Carl off. Terrible decision, really stupid. Okay, but obviously because he has a massive arc in the comics still left, that you're now just gonna completely mess up. Okay, you bring in Henry, right? So they brought in Henry in season 7, I think. So you're going to transform Henry and give him the plot, especially with Lydia, right? So you're going to give him the Lydia plot line from the comics, and you're going to bring him up then as the next Carl, right? You're going to give him the Carl material. So we're still going to be able to see all that great stuff that Kirkman came up with in the comics for Carl. We're going to be able to see it in the show going forward, right? This is going to be great. They may actually somewhat redeem themselves for making a really stupid decision with Carl, and now they might, be able to kind of go forward now with Henry filling that role. Of course, it's not going to be the same, but at least capture some of that. No, right? No. They just kill him off as well in season 9 in this Heads on Pikes. Just, insane. The moment itself is shocking because, yeah, you wouldn't think Henry would die at this point in the show. Again, it makes sense because they were giving him the Carl stuff. They were kind of building him up to be the next Carl. And so, yeah, it's shocking to see him at the last head on the pike there being killed. But, what are we doing? Why would you then spend a season and a bit more developing him, making him into the next Carl, giving him the stuff with Lydia, which I felt was definitely, the strongest stuff that they gave Henry up to that point in the show. And then I'll do all of that, give us all of that screen time with him and Lydia and him as a character just to kill him off at the end of Heads on Pikes. And it did not need to happen. Why did Carol need to suffer another catastrophic loss like that of her child? She had been through enough. She had already been on the same arc that she then went on after Henry, twice in the show, right? Of losing people that she cared about. And so, just completely unnecessary for Carol's point of view. And I think that's what some people would say to justify his death is, oh, it had a big impact on Carol. No, that was not needed at that point in the show. at all, and just such a waste of development. And then, if you want to talk about also the future impact, we didn't get to see the stuff that, Carl had from the comics, largely at least, because they killed Henry off, and then we didn't see the rest of that arc play out. So, just insane. Again, I think the Carl death is worse, but it's maybe even more stupid, the Henry death, to me, in the way that they were somewhat redeeming themselves, and then they once again destroyed any kind of faith I had in that decision to kill Carl. So anyways, yeah, just absolutely a terrible death to me in the F tier there. All right, so next then, we're going to season 10 now, is Siddiq. And of course, this is Open Your Eyes, the episode. I thought this was a good death, just on the surface. The twist that plays out I thought was really effective. And to be perfectly honest, with season 10, until this moment, I was like kind of asleep on the season. This moment really woke me up and really got me back into things with season 10, because I thought the first half year was kind of slow and was just not great. And this scene really kind of woke me up. That twist really got me with Dante. And the scene, I think, is just really well played out. Now, the Siddiq death is, again, one of the stupider decisions of the show, because of the way that, again, okay, so they justified it by saying Carl's dying was what made, Rick, my mercy prevails over my wrath, keep Negan alive at the end of season 8. And then it also was the fact of Siddiq kind of being that legacy of Carl, of living on, of him, saving people. We gotta save people, right? And him saving Siddiq, in the process of getting bit, right, and dying, he saves Siddiq, brings him into the community, and then again for them to kill Siddiq off then 2 seasons after, which is like the lasting legacy of Carl. Just really dumb, really dumb. They could have easily picked a different character for this twist to happen to, for Dante to kill in Alexandria, and of course they picked Siddiq, who is like the one character who would make sense to live out the rest of the show and, carry on this legacy that Carl started. And it's just, again, just stupidity that they kill Siddiq off. Now, I don't think I can put it in F tier, because I do really like the twist, Open Your Eyes. I really like that with Dante. So I think I'm going to put it maybe at the bottom of D tier, but maybe I might put it a little higher than, something like Andrea, but I do really like the way it was made. So, yeah, so I think I would put it above Andrea, maybe above Beth. This is tough. Okay, maybe the top of D then, because again, these ones I just don't think were executed all that well. I think this one was executed pretty well. It's just a really dumb decision. So we'll put that at the top of D there for now. All right. Next then is Gamma, and this was same episode actually, I think, as Alpha dying. I think it's just a little earlier in the episode, I think. I honestly don't really remember this that well, to be honest. Again, like I said, season 10 I was kind of asleep a little bit, but yeah, this death was okay, I think. Again, I think this is just in that mid tier for sure, in C tier. I think she is kind of betrays the Whispers, right? And she feels like she's finally free, and then Beta kind of sneaks up on her and stabs her. And it's really brutal, right? Where she tears off his mask and then he just pulls the knife up and basically disembowels her, right? Just a really, really crazy death. And then of course, he says, "You're going to walk with us." She says, "No," right? And then, of course, he kills her, watches her, literally waits for her to reanimate, and makes her walk with them. Just so sick and twisted, right? So psychotic, and really fits with the rest of the Whisperer thing. So, yeah, I mean, so that part of it was cool, right, to see that part of it. But, yeah, I don't know. I didn't love her as a character, so... I think it would be kind of in the same range as Spencer, right? It's a cool kind of execution of it. Is it the best death? Probably not. Would I put it over T-Dog? Maybe. Yeah, maybe. I mean, he also does sacrifice for Carol, so that's meaningful. Maybe Nicholas is a little more memorable. Deanna, yeah, okay. We'll put it above Deanna there in C tier. Again, I think in that mid tier is fine. All right, so Alpha's death then in season 10, episode 12, Lines We Cross, I think it's called. Yeah, this was a great death. For Negan to be the one to do it, obviously Carol letting him, go, freeing him, right, to basically join the Whisperers, right, walk with them, and then obviously be the one to betray Alpha. Obviously they have this relationship, and so for him to betray her like that, I did think it was perhaps a little anticlimactic, at least for the show. I think it's the same in the comics, the way it played out. I think in the show that relationship didn't quite get as much out of me as it maybe would have in the comics. And so, yeah, maybe it was a little kind of anticlimactic to me. Maybe I think, waiting till the finale of season 10 perhaps might have been better. Or I don't know, or maybe just show a little bit more time with Negan and her, to the point where she would trust him enough, for this to happen. I just felt like maybe it's a little sudden. So anyways, but a really great death and a fitting death for Alpha for sure, and really great to see Negan do it, right, and betraying them, of course. So yeah, betraying her. So where would I put it? So yeah, just like a little disappointed, but a good death as well. Damn, I think maybe top of B tier here. I don't think I would put it in A. For me personally, Dale's death. Yeah, I think top of B probably, right? Laurie's death, very impactful of the show, and I do like it. Yeah, okay, so we'll put a top of B there. But maybe, Laurie's death, is that more impactful? Maybe it felt a little convenient, though, at times. Okay, well, we'll put it below Laurie, but anyways, put it in B tier there for now. Okay, so that was Beta's death, and this is as close to F tier as I can get. Maybe I might put it in F tier as well. You know what? I think I will. I think it's the top of F tier, though, but this was just such a disappointing death. Talk about anticlimactic. For this scene, I don't even know how you would write this, or the writers even, had this in mind of how this sequence plays out with Beta's death, because they themselves wrote multiple sequences and multiple fights between Daryl and Beta and other characters as well that were better and had more stakes than this one in the finale of season 10, the first, episode 16, as the conclusion to this character of Beta that we've watched the whole time and through 2 seasons of the show here. You've literally showed us better battles in other episodes of the show so far, and to have this be the way that this character, this strong man that even Daryl can't take out at other times in the episode, right? That one fight, what is it? I want to say Choke Point, right? Is the episode, I think, where they get in that fight and he kind of drops in the elevator. A great sequence. I was expecting something like that, or maybe even more than that, in the final episode of Beta, in the final fight, between him and Daryl. Maybe something like that would happen, right? No, that's not what happens. It's a very, easy struggle that happens, and then Daryl is just, within, I want to say it lasts, a minute. It's not even a long sequence at all, and then Daryl takes the knives and sticks them in his eye sockets, right, and kills them, and then he gets devoured, right, by the walkers at the end. So I guess, that part's fitting, but what a disappointing, anticlimactic way to end that storyline for a character like that, as being arguably the strongest character in the entire series, in hand-to-hand combat, in intelligence, strategy, just everything that he was so good at in the show, and they just completely abandoned that and made it one of the easier kills that Daryl has had in the entire series, to wind up that whole Whisperer arc, really. Because Alpha's dead at this point. Beta's our only, main villain from the group. And so to tie it up like that, yeah, that was so disappointing. And I will say, though, to be fair, part of this whole thing is that we waited months for that episode, to get that finale episode, and then to see it play out like that after months of waiting, that is also part of it that I think makes it an F tier death for sure, but it is what it is. All right, so next then is Lucille, and this is from Here's Negan, of course, that episode. I don't know that this one needed to be on this list, to be honest, for me. But yeah, I mean, it's a memorable death, I guess, right? She's only in one episode of the show. It was cool to, to see Jeffrey Dean Morgan's real wife playing, I think it's Hillary Morgan, right? Or Hillary Burnt Morgan, that plays his wife in the episode. It was cool. And a really great episode of the show for sure. But yeah, she dies. It's emotional, but I don't know, I would say probably like mid, somewhere in there. She's only in an episode of the show. So yeah, I mean, I don't know, bottom of mid, like I thought it was good. I thought it was fine. Maybe over Gregory then, because I don't have any really problems with it. Gregory I kind of had problems with, maybe over Deanna then too. Yeah, okay, that's fine. That's fine for Lucille. All right, so the next we're getting into season 11 now, and the first one is Pope. And I thought he had to be included here because he was a pretty big villain in the first 8 episodes, or the first third of season 8 there. And this was kind of an anticlimactic death as well. I think I like Pope. I like Pope more than others. I thought the actor, and I'm forgetting his name now. But I thought he did such a great job with the limited time he had. I thought he really brought that character to life. I liked Pope as a villain. But anyways, yeah, just kind of an anticlimactic death. I thought he definitely could have even lasted longer, really, than episode 8. I think he could have had more time in the show as a villain. And the way that Leah kind of is able to just it just felt very easy for her to kind of sneak up on him there and just stab him in the neck. And take him out, whereas he was kind of built up as this, army commander, this very tough guy, and, great fighter, great strategist, kind of like Beta, and, she just kind of sneaks up on him and kills him. I guess you could say, that he trusted her, that kind of thing, but anyways, yeah, so it was just a little disappointing, I would say, for Pope. But again, he wasn't a major character in the show. He was only around for 5 or 6 episodes or something like that. So yeah, so a little disappointing, as for a villain, for his arc. But yeah, okay, probably around Gregory's point here. Yeah, probably the bottom of C. I guess it did develop Leah a little bit, showed that she would, be willing to kill kind of one of her own to protect her and Daryl and the rest of the people. So that was okay. I wouldn't put it in D tier. Yeah, okay. We'll put it at the bottom of C there for now, I think. I was a little disappointed with that one. Would Gregory be worse than that? Yeah, maybe. Okay, so we'll put the Pope in C. All right, so next then is Alden, and this was in season 11, I think episode 9, No Other Way, where this is a tough one, though, because, technically we don't actually see his death happen. He's just left at this church in one of the earlier episodes of season 11, I think, and then episode 9, Maggie returns, and he's just a walker, and he died. So it's a weird death to me, one of the weirder ones on this list. And also just kind of anticlimactic for Maggie to go back there, right? Spend the kind of the time on that plot and everything, and then for her just to go back there and he's dead. It was just kind of weird to me. Just an odd death, and for how big of a character he became to this point in the show, it was kind of shocking that they would do this off screen and that he would just be dead when she came back. So yeah, a weird one for sure. Definitely a weird one. I would say, I don't know, Gregory, there's nothing really redeeming about this that I can think of. So maybe I would do top of D. I don't think it's an F tier. I don't think it's quite on that level. Alden wasn't a favorite character of mine or anything, but yeah, I think top of D. It's not as dumb as Sadiq. The Sasha thing. But these are kind of disappointing where I would have liked to see these characters stick around longer. Alden didn't have too much to do yet. It's going forward. So yeah, but definitely one of the weirder deaths of the show, I think you could say. All right, so then Leah in, Acts of God, season 10, episode 16, the mid-season finale, or the second mid-season finale of season 11 there. Honestly, I can't remember this one that well. I think Daryl shoots her, right, killing her and saving Maggie in the process. And they kind of play with this whole thing of like, will Daryl be able to kill her, right? Will he be able to save Maggie if she attacks him or she attacks her? And I just didn't really buy it. Obviously Daryl is gonna save Maggie. We've only seen Leah now for like a season, and he's been with Maggie for how long in the show? It just felt a little fake to me, the way they kind of tried to build that up. And I feel like Leah just lasted too long in the show. I think she kind of overstayed her welcome a little bit. But yeah, it was a good death, the way it went. And obviously Maggie and her kind of being at odds, being kind of one of the main focal points of season 11, the mid part of it. So yeah, I don't know. I think probably in C tier here. I think it's just kind of a mid kind of thing for sure. Would I put her above, Gamma? That's kind of a more memorable scene to me. Lucille, yeah, I guess so. It wasn't like that disappointing of a death, but yeah, okay. We'll put it right there in the C tier there. All right, so next that is Sebastian Milton. This was just a really satisfying death, I would say, right? I think it was just, it was a character that you just loved for this to happen to. He was just such a dick, right? But there wasn't anything that he did, like, particularly, even in this scene, he's trying to, is he trying to catch up to Max or maybe, like, push her into the walkers, right? And then he ends up falling down and the walkers devour him instead. And so it's kind of like he basically kills himself, right? Because of his kind of stupidity, of course, and his ego, right? Him being a dick and trying to catch Max and kill her after what happens. Because I think Max exposes him, right, to the community. So, yeah, it was a good death. It kind of did come out of nowhere to me. Like, it was a little unexpected. And, yeah, just really satisfying, way to see him go, for sure. So, yeah, I don't know. Again, I think it's probably in this, like, tier of Spencer, right? I would actually put it very similar to Spencer. Again, is it the most memorable? Not really. Is it an arrow through Denise's head? No, not really to me. T-Dog, yeah, I guess it would probably be over T-Dog. It'd be kind of a memorable one. So, well, Nicholas saying thank you. Is that more memorable? Yeah, I don't know. Okay, I think we'll just stick it there. We'll stick it there and see. Is T-Dog, sacrificing himself? Maybe that is a little better. Nicholas, the whole thank you thing. Yeah, okay, so we'll put it there in C tier there for now. All right, so then a few more left here. We have Lance Hornsby, of course, and this is in season 11 as well. I thought this was a good death. I feel like, again, like at the point where they killed him in this scene or in this episode, I think it's episode 20, it did feel like, yeah, he could have died, a few episodes before this. It felt like he kind of lasted a little too long in the show. And, I like the death. I do. They kind of take him out and he's, reaches for the gun or something like that. And then Carol just shoots an arrow through his neck. And so, yeah, it was a memorable scene for sure. And again, it's kind of like Sebastian, right? He was a bad, guy. Again, not one of the best villains of the show, but a bad guy who you just would like to see meet his demise. And I thought it was a satisfying, way that he died for sure. But kind of overstayed his welcome. I think this could have happened, a little bit before it did in the show. So somewhere in this kind of mid-tier as well. Do I put it over, Nicholas's thank you? Yeah, maybe I put it over Sebastian even too, because he was kind of this villain for a while. T-Dog, yeah, okay, so maybe I might put it over T-Dog then in that C tier. Not a huge fan, of Lance and kind of where it went in the season 11 at the end, so I think that's a fair spot. All right, so then we skip to the finale, and we see the last few deaths here, the last couple. It is Luke in the finale of season 11, and this was okay. I never really got that into, Luke, Magna, Yumiko, that group to me. It just never really caught on. I did like... who did I like the best from there? I guess Yumiko probably, right? Probably like Yumiko the best, but Yeah, I like Luke as well, but yeah, I just feel like they never really developed that group enough. And so, yeah, to see him in the finale, die, yeah, it was emotional, right? Like, it was tough to see, but it didn't have as much weight as maybe I think they wanted it to, at least in my opinion. So yeah, and it's a good death, right? Like, he dies trying to save the people going into the crowd, where they're all trapped, right, in this finale episode trying to get out, and then he kind of bleeds to death in the hospital. Where they get to him or get him to. So, yeah, I don't know. Again, I think they were trying to have more to this where it really didn't to me. And just not a very memorable death at all, right? Like, he just gets swarmed by walkers and then he dies in the hospital. And not much impact because it's literally the finale episode. And so we don't really see the impact on the group. That he has. So, yeah, somewhere just in this mid-tier to me, again, T-Dog with the walkers, I guess it's a similar thing to me. I think T-Dog's probably a better character, but, Sebastian's death, yeah, I think it's probably less, lower than that. Again, Nicholas's thank you, the magnets, Leah, do I put Leah's death over? Yeah, probably. Do I put it over this? Yeah, okay. So we'll put it right there in the C tier there for Luke. All right, so one more. Of course, the Simon one's the duplicate, so we'll just have this last one. It is Rosita, the last major death in the Walking Dead series in the finale episode. Rest in peace. This was a really good death, man. They saved a really good one till the end. I will say it's a little weird to me. Rosita's such a big character for so long in the show. And, for her to just get bit, it did feel a little underwhelming maybe. It did, for that to be the way that she goes after all that she's been through and all this stuff through the show. And, in that scene as well, like it kind of, she gets swarmed and then she kind of, breaks out of the crowd and she's able to get back up. And yeah, I don't know. I would have liked to see it, at least, for a character as big as Rosita. I would have liked to see it happen, personally. And I just think it's maybe a little weak. I think that could have happened a little bit better. But, I mean, what an emotional way, to end the episode. They play it out really well, how she doesn't reveal it right away, and even, the way that she, tells Gabriel about it, and, the way that she's able to go on her own terms, and just the way that it really brings the whole finale and the whole series to a close, I think is just a really effective way that they did it. So, and certainly one of the most memorable. I think Rosita's, arguably a top 10 character in the show's history, and so, to have her die in the finale, yeah, just really, really fitting, right? Really fitting way to end the series. But I think it could have been executed maybe a little better. But anyways, so I'll probably, put, I don't know, like A or B tier probably for Rosita's death. It is really impactful, kind of brings things all together in the finale. So do I put it at the bottom of A? Laurie's death I had a little bit of a problem with. I guess I would put this in the same vein as Laurie's death probably. Same with Alpha. I had like a little bit of a problem with it. So yeah, I think what I'll do is I'll put it probably, it didn't have as much impact as Laurie's death. So, you know what? I think I'll put it there above Alpha's. I think it just has more kind of impact, more emotional kind of, value to it. So yeah, we'll put it there. All right, so that'll just about do it for this one. Let's just see if anything kind of quickly needs to be moved or anything like that. Honestly, I really like this. I like this A tier. I think the S tier is good. Maybe I could have put more in S tier, obviously, only 5 being there. Yeah, maybe I could have done more there, but I do really like the A tier. The B tier here, this stuff looks pretty good to me. Maybe these two, maybe better than Simon. I think that's okay though for now. The C tier I like. The F tier, I think the F tier is good. I think the 3 there is good, and the D tier just kind of D for disappointing. Really, all these deaths were just kind of disappointing to me. And then we got the mid, and then the B, A, kind of in the same vein, and then the S is obviously the S tier there for those. So, anyways, I'm happy with that. I don't think any rearranging needs to be done, but love to hear your guys' thoughts, of course, on my ranking now that it's all finished. And if you agree, disagree with my rankings, anything anything like that, love to hear from you either way. So yeah, that'll just about do it for this one. Like I said, might do a character ranking in the future or something else like that. You know, now that Dead City's coming up, I think it's a good time to kind of look back on The Walking Dead, kind of get back into things here. So yeah, really looking forward to Dead City Season 2, by the way. Very excited. So anyways, hope to see you guys around there for Dead City. But yeah, that'll just about do it for this one. So thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you then in my next video.